All right, internets. Yeah, throw something at the screen if you can hear us, because we are live, and we are here in your living room or your bedroom or wherever we happen to be. But we're here, and yeah, we're gonna do some D&D. And my name is Wiley Hobbit. Here on Earth, I'm known as Scott, and I'll be the DM. And we'll get into all that in a little bit. But welcome to the inaugural game of a new campaign here on the Wiley Hobbit network of Twitchness, Secrets of the Flanaess. Super stoked to have some Greyhawk gracing our airwaves here at the Wiley Hobbit Twitch channel. So welcome aboard. Thanks for bouncing in, and let's go around and well, we're going to do something a little different. I'm calling this episode 0.5 as opposed to episode 1, and it's the rest of the story is the name of our episode. Before we dive into the tale itself, however, we're gonna do a little sort of a. It's gonna feel a little bit like session 0, I think. We've already met as a group offline, but as somebody before we came live said something to the effect of, "Seems like that was a lifetime ago," because I think it was. It was probably back before Thanksgiving. It was a while ago. So we're gonna kind of go back through some of that, but we're gonna do it on stream so that you can get a good clean start to this thing and understand who the players are, first of all, who the people behind our characters are, and then who each character is. We're going to get a kind of an introduction from each of us, and then after that we'll talk a little bit about what the game should feel like, what we're going for, some mechanical details that might be a little bit different about this particular D&D game than what maybe you're used to playing at home. And then we'll talk about the narrative, kind of set this thing, talk a little bit about where the story came from and where we are headed with it. So without further ado, I think what I will do is I will go in alphabetical order by the fourth letter of the first name. Let's see, that's a B, so Hebney Craigbeam. And I better write that down or I'll forget. So Hebney, why don't you first of all tell us, Dave, what you're all about, man, and give your pitch and give us your bio, and we're just going to have a roundtable discussion. You might be muted.
How does this work? Oh yeah.
It's a
Hey
Zoom
guys,
call.
is that what it is? God, I do
Yeah.
this every day for work. You'd think I'd know how to do it by now. Hey guys, super excited to be around the table with you all again. Folks in the chat, hello. My name's Dave. I can be found on Wednesday nights over at the Guild Superior Twitch channel. I run a Greyhawk based game over there called Beyond Saltmarsh, and we have our party is getting into some serious trouble in Narisbin on the South Olman Island, as they are eventually going to make their way to the Amadio jungle in search of a lost city. Geesh, I don't know. I love TTRPGs. My favorite color is blue, and I'm excited to reprise my role here today and in the weeks to come of Hebney Craigbeam. He's an ornery SOB rock gnome tinkerer. I like to say he's a rage tinker. In fact, that when I was thinking of my original backstory for my character, I like to do like one-line backstories to start, and it was rage tinkering. So he is a tinker and an artisan guild, former artisan guild member. He was booted, which for reasons that maybe we'll find out. But he's also a wild magic barbarian. Part of the reason he was kicked out of the guild is because of that wild magic. So he gets really frustrated, and when that happens, weird shit happens. So that's about it. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
It's good to have you back at the table there, Dave. The cranky rock gnome that blows things up, usually not on purpose-ish. Should be just fine. Okay, so fourth letter of the first name, alphabetical order, B. Let's see, we got a D. I think D wins. Oh, which D? We got two Ds, don't you know? So we'll go back one letter to the letter 3, and that's an A. So Eridith Carwin. Tell us a little bit about, first of all, Carl, man. What's up, my dude?
Sorry, I'm not used to you getting my character name right. Hello, friends. Hi, I'm Carl on the Discord. I am Carnage, both with a K. First of all, I was a regular here last year on the Wednesday night game. I just want to acknowledge how much everyone viewing has missed me. Played D&D quite a bit back in back in my high school and college days. Then real life happened, and kind of got away from it for a while, and then not quite a year and a half ago, maybe. Blarg down there, Chris on screen, reached out to me and said, "Hey, there's a Wednesday night game we do that needs some new, fresh blood." And I said, "I don't know how to play D&D anymore," but then I figured it out and joined.
Did
I'm
you?
very glad to be back
I'm
in
glad
this
you think
world.
so.
So, yes, yes. Wait, what?
What?
Anyway, so my new character, a little bit different than my Wednesday night game character. Eredith Carwin is a Shadar Kai elf from the Shadowfall realm who has, he was in kind of a member of an elite corps in service to the Raven Queen. Who was sent. Yeah, okay, we're doing that already. Okay. Who was sent through the veils between dimensions to in pursuit of something we'll discover when we meet him, along with three other fellow Shadar Kai. He now finds himself the sole survivor of that party and trapped here in the Flanaess. He wears a studded leather armor that's kind of various shades of black and grays, dark clothes, dark boots. We kind of blend in well in a realm full of shadows and such. And he, like I said, he's now in this strange new world, knows nobody, is trying to figure out where do I go and will I ever be able to get home. So, and we'll learn more about him once we meet him.
So we shall. Excellent. Very well done, Carl. Welcome, Eredith Carwin. Okay, we're going to drop right beneath you to Baldwin O'Farrell. Tim, what's up, my man? Thanks for
Good evening, friends. Good afternoon, friends, wherever you are in the world. My name's Tim, and my favorite color is purple. I'm also known as Enoch Pratt on Twitch and Discord. I'm a theater artist and educator. I make things and I do things. And in the Twitch, I'm going to try and drop my Instagram so you can check out some of the fun things and work things that I do. I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons since 1981. My two favorite D&D monsters are the Lurker Above. Some of you will get that joke. And my other favorite monster is the Kraken. My character's name is Baldwin O'Farrell. He's a dwarf swashbuckler from Roddick. And my inspiration for this character was Baldwin the Dwarf from the 1980 classic Hawk the Slayer. If you haven't seen that movie, what's wrong with you? You should go check it out. It's a classic, I tell you. So Baldwin, he's a drinking, eating, fighting, fun-loving thief who hides a darker disposition. And I look forward to joining a regular campaign with him. So there you go.
Excellent. Glad to have you aboard, sir. All right, so we're down to the two characters who have R as the fourth letter in their name. I really didn't pick that as a really good way to, choose the order. But we're going to go with Blarg because if we go back to letter 3, it's an A, which comes before the other R, and Daryl Nimblebottom. So Blarg, tell us a little bit about, first of all, Chris, and then your character.
So hey everybody, I'm Chris, WikiVA on Discord and Twitch. My Twitter handle is some combination of my name and the number 6. So I also am a alum of the Wednesday night game, where I had a great time playing with that group of folks. And I'm excited to be a part of this game. I have nothing else going on in my life. The only place I play Dungeons and Dragons is right here. So it's the only place you can see me do that. And when I thought about joining this game and making a character, I sort of thumbed through the source materials, the player's handbook, and looked around and thought, what is the most useless combination of things I could be that would be of absolutely no use to the party, but would seemingly be fun? And I settled on a rogue mastermind. And if you're not familiar with a rogue mastermind, if you look up its abilities, I think you'll see what I mean. They're pretty worthless. With that said, my next phase in character development was when you think of mastermind, what is the first thing that leaps to your mind? And I thought goblin. So I'm playing a level 4 goblin mastermind named Blarg. And he is, he's goblin size, 3'8". He's about 25 years old. He's got orangish, reddish eyes, yellowish skin. Goblins are known for their sort of bulbous noses and bulbous features. His are somewhat less bulbous than normal, which probably means he's quite handsome to other goblins. Dashing, dare I say, to other goblins. And he is wears a soft leather armor. He has a bandolier that has a couple of daggers attached, and he has a warm black hooded cloak that covers his body. And I know what everyone's thinking right now. Blarg, that sounds so familiar to me. Where have I heard that before? And if you're a student of Goblin history, as I am, you immediately know that Blarg, or you'll immediately remember that Blarg is the name of the greatest goblin hero that ever lived, Blarg. And my character is named after Blarg. The heroic Blarg from millennia past is still in goblin lore known as the goblin who came closest to slaying a giant. And for that, he became a great goblin hero. And now in goblin society, when goblin infants are brought into this world, the tribal shaman will examine each infant and determine whether that infant has some of the characteristics of that great goblin hero. And if the shaman concludes that this infant does, then the name Blarg is given to that infant. As a result, Blarg is quite a common name in the goblin realm. It's sort of akin to John. So my Blarg is named after that Blarg, and as you might imagine, quite heroic, and might possibly come close to killing a giant someday, just like his namesake.
How did the tale of the original Blarg, how did that go as far as the giant?
That's
I'm curious.
Ask that too.
Sure, I'm glad you asked that. So Blarg. Now we're talking about the hero Blarg, the great goblin hero Blarg. So one day, Blarg's village came under attack by a number of giants, and the goblin tribe was, of course, concerned, and they conscripted several young goblin males in the defense of the tribe. And Blarg, who had up until that time had never seen combat before, was handed a short sword and told to guard the outskirts of the village while the women, the elderly, the children retreated. He was going to cover their retreat along with other goblin warriors. So Blarg held up his short sword, never had swung one before, tested its short swordedness, gave a few practice swings, and the giants were coming down out of the mountains towards the village. And when the giants finally came into sight, Blarg's compatriots fled in terror. They just ran. And so the line was broken. And Blarg was paralyzed by great fear. And as a result, he stood his ground. And as the giants approached, he was drenched in sweat, quite possibly urine, but he was paralyzed. In his movement was paralyzed. He couldn't run. So it was at that moment he decided to make his heroic stand. And he reached out with his short sword, and the giant foot came down and crushed him as the giants continued on towards the village and then destroyed the rest of the tribe.
So close.
So close. But that's
Yeah.
the closest any goblin has ever come to slaying a giant.
That's beautiful.
God, that
Man.
was a setup, right? That was
Man.
you just teed him up for that.
Well, I'm just glad someone asked.
That's right.
Would have
Exactly.
been a shame had we gone this whole campaign and never heard that story.
Yes.
I know.
That's right.
Something
Thank,
tells
thank
me.
God I don't have to follow that.
Something
That,
tells
that was
me.
right off the top of your head, too.
Well,
Well,
Something
Maybe.
tells me we'll hear that tale a
Chris.
time or two as we adventure together. Very nice. Well done. Thank you, Chris and
Sure.
Blarg. Very good. Very good. All right, and that leaves last but certainly not least, Doc Shoulder playing Daryl Nimblebottom.
thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. My name's Bob, and really on Discord and a couple different channels, Doc Shoulder. My history with D&D, I started with the pink box set. So the Moldvay basic set was what I got for Christmas when I was 9, and played through Keeping the Borderlands about 50 times, and then moved up to 1E, played that for several years after that, and then again kind of dropped out of the scene for a bit, for a long bit, until 5E came around. And I was actually looking for something to be able to do with my daughter that didn't involve a computer screen. And that's why we picked it back up again. And so I started with her and kind of running her and some of her friends through a campaign, and we've continued to do that. And then I got back in playing myself in real life, and then COVID happened, and then those games went away. And then last year, I started playing on Friday nights, Castles and Crusades with Rob, Phantom Rob, which you might know from Discord. Yep. And we've been doing that for about a year now. And that group's great. There's about 8 or 9 different people that show up on every Friday night. So it's a really big group playing Castles and Crusades. And we were playing in the world that CNC is in, which is Airdy. And we, about a month ago, we transported through a portal into Greyhawk. And so actually Rob shifted the whole thing into Greyhawk. And so we are started in Harby and have been kind of on a ship and on our first campaign out from there. So it's pretty cool. This past 2 days ago, there was 13 people that showed up.
Oh,
so
wow.
it was running a group of 13. It was pretty crazy.
And that runs in Discord, you said?
It runs on the Blue Box channel.
Okay.
On Friday Night Crusades on Blue Box, there's a channel for that, and anyone can jump in, and it's on Discord, and it's the Friday Night Crusades and Castles and Crusades, and it's fun. People drop in, listen, but if you want to roll up a character and kind of start a little Castles and Crusades for yourself, Rob's more than happy to have anyone join on. So
Man, that's cool.
It's been fun. So my character is Daryl Nimblebottom, and so I was lucky to play in the virtual Greyhawk Con stream that Wiley ran, and his brother Bingo Nimblebottom was a rogue arcane trickster that was part of that, and we'll meet him. But my character for this campaign is going to be his adopted brother Daryl. So his Bingo has 2 other brothers, and his other brother Daryl is the one that's playing as a child of the 80s. And
yeah, man.
And so Daryl's a dwarf cleric, and he grew up in a small hobbit village in the Vestvi Forest, and his brothers were the adventurous ones, and he was the non-adventurous one. His parents died. His dad died in battle up in the Yadtil Mountains as a fighter dwarf, and his mother took him and his down to heading towards Greyhawk, and that's where he met up with his family. So he's typical dwarf size. He's 5'1", and we'll get into his backstory a little bit. But his unusual markings are that half of his body is burned. So the right side of his face and his hand are scarred. He can still open his right eye, but his eyelashes and his eyebrows are completely burned off and have not been able to grow back. So he's really, his face is pretty distorted. And that's changed his character a little bit about how he acts, and as well as and it's one of the things that he struggles with, because he grew up this kind, gentle person, and with this event that occurred in his life, it's changed partly his personality, and he struggles with that. And that's one of the issues that hopefully we'll bring out in the campaign a little bit, is his personal struggles internally with kind of his goodness versus his badness, I guess, if you want to think of it. So that's Daryl, and we'll meet him as well as a little recap on Bingo, his brother, I think, when we start.
Yeah, we will. Excellent. All right, we got everybody, right? So we've met our players, we've met our characters, and this isn't meant to be necessarily an incredibly produced show in that regard, so much as welcome to our table while we D&D. And we'll probably, I'm still kind of dipping my toe in the idea of some VTT, and we'll use some maps and some displays, some graphics and things. And I'm going to get an upgraded overlay and so forth. But really what we want this to be is our friends enjoying us playing D&D. Hey, Jay, thanks for that sub, man. Appreciate you continuing to support our channel. Very nice. Good to see you, Jay. So it's just intended to be good old Greyhawk D&D, around the table with friends. So make sure you check out, we'll drop some chat commands. Check out Lord Gazumba, talk about some Greyhawk D&D. Man, that's a great place for it. Check him out on stream. In fact, he's got a show he runs tonight called Gabbin' at the Peaks, and we're going to check that out. I think that's at 7, if that's correct, Jay. And then we dropped a little command in there for Dave and his team on Wednesdays. So, yeah. So, a little bit about me. I've been streaming D&D for, hard to believe, almost 4 years. I discovered Dungeons & Dragons in 1982. I had the red box. And I, too, played a lot of Keep on the Borderlands. I think, Doc, you mentioned that. That is kind of my most favorite, early D&D memory. And this would have been, I guess, first edition. AD&D probably is where I came in. Back when you had to color your dice with crayons and things. Hey, Dave, thanks for all those gift subs, my dude, man. That is so generous. Thank you. And thanks to Dave Guild Superior for subbing as well. So thank you for all that support. Very, very much appreciated. So at any rate, I have a really similar story to Doc in that I played D&D up into maybe college age or so, and then life just kind of took over, and I made it as far as second edition. I DM'd some in early editions and in second edition, and then I didn't play again until 5th edition, and I discovered it just accidentally, randomly found a thing called Twitch and was surfing around there, and I saw, like D&D, like, whoa, what's okay. And I, much to my delight, I discovered D&D on Twitch through Encounter Roleplay, and started watching that stream, and Scraticus and Tall Squall, all those folks who, I don't know that any of them really stream much anymore, but I first played on Scraticus's game in like February of 2018. I got over my fear and rolled up a character and ended up starting to stream later that summer on my own channel, and here we are. So this is our third attempt at a Greyhawk game on the Wily Hobbit channel. The first two just couldn't make it stick, and hopefully this one, third time's a charm, as they say. So hopefully this one will stick. I've been wanting to be a more active member of the Greyhawk online community, so it's a thrill to be able to run a game back in my favorite classic old setting. And we will be in Rotic. So we're actually in Baldwin O'Farrell's home territory, so to speak. So that's kind of cool. And I think also the Nimblebottoms hail from these parts. Hebney, you came from on high, didn't you?
Well, I sort of revisited a little bit about Hebney and his background, and he actually originates from the Flinty Hills area.
Ah, know them well.
And yep, and migrated east and north for various reasons. His small village was attacked and raided multiple times. They fought off a small band of orcs, but succumbed to a larger follow-up wave of invaders. But yeah, he made his way across the Blemu Hills and stopped in Lurglin and eventually ended up in Johnsport, where he joined the Artisans Guild that I alluded to before and was summarily kicked out of it shortly thereafter, and eventually found his way up the coast to Caverick's Cove.
Nice. Actually, this is the fourth attempt at Greyhawk on this channel because my first game was actually set in Greyhawk, and then we moved it into Forgotten Realms, and that's what became the Wednesday night game that Chris and Carl played in. And that game was set in the Flinty Hills. We ran B1 Into the Unknown. We ran it out of the Goodman Games when they combined B1 and 2 into one big book, and we ran that. So very familiar with the Flinty Hills and the Blemu Hills and Neural, all that good stuff. So cool. Yeah.
Did your first few campaigns have a mastermind?
No, they did not. So that will be the one.
That's the difference.
Now we know.
Yes.
Yep.
There was no Blarg.
There was no Blarg. Yes.
No Blarg.
Much to our dismay. Yes. So here we are in Greyhawk. Once again, super thrilled about that. I think that's kind of my bio, my background. Also happy to say, you look on the overlay, there's a logo there, a bit of artwork. Jasper's Game Day is a charity near and dear to my heart. They support the survivors of suicide. They also support suicide prevention resources. And the mantra with us, with Jasper's Game Day, I'm a proud and humble ambassador of that organization. And as such, we host fundraisers for them here, and those will be coming later in the year. But the mantra there is you're not a critical failure. It's mental health is a big deal. Being well is not always possible, and it's okay to not be well. But when we're not well, we need some help. And so Jasper's Game Day is all about that. And I'm super proud of that. The gaming community has raised a lot of money, tens of thousands of dollars over the past 4 years, have gone to suicide prevention, training for call counselors, training and support for survivors. And I love that about our gaming community, right? We all come out here to slay dragons and cast spells and poke fun at one another and eat too many potato chips. But at the end of the day, this community is so kind and giving and loving, and it's a kind of a proud thing to be a part of that. So, So keep an eye out for that. I'll drop a little nugget there in chat as soon as I remember what my chat commands are. There it is. If you're interested in supporting that, there's a linkage there. We will be doing some Jasper's Game Day events forthcoming, so just something to think about. But so you've met the DM, you've met the characters. Let's talk a little bit about our game. What's the game going to be all about? And to me, and let's maybe guys chime in here, but growing up, Greyhawk was a little bit gritty, a little bit dark. And if I understood, Gary Gygax's intention well, it wasn't meant to be good always prevails. What do you guys think about Greyhawk? How do you see it?
I guess, the way that I've experienced Greyhawk, which is not, I don't have the historical perspective of all you guys, not to say that I'm the youngest guy in the group, maybe, I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of dark forces at play. And I always get the sense that it's kind of like a darkness encroaching on wherever the adventure is centered. There's things around it that are sort of like constricting. That's the sense that I've always had. And that it's sort of not necessarily like a high magic experience where there's magic items everywhere. It's sort of, I don't know, a little bit, I hate to use the word realistic in a fantasy gameplay, but it's a little bit more, like gritty, like what you're saying, a little bit more realistic, a little bit harder on the characters. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a mean DM.
Funny you should mention that. Sometimes 5e comes over maybe a little cartoony in a way, like the Saturday morning Dungeons and Dragons, and at the end of the day, everybody lives and woo, and if you like that kind of D&D, and I've played tons of it, and it's a blast and it's fun, great. But the idea with this game is that kind of that gritty realism, that evil is everywhere, and not everyone you're going to meet in the game is well intended, and the things we do in game, those actions, those decisions, those things all have consequences. People are watching. Dark forces are around the corner, taking notes, sort of thing. And that's what I love about Greyhawk, right? For me, it makes it a much more challenging or stressful at times game. And I'm far from a mean DM. I've only had a couple of characters die in the 4 years I've been streaming D&D. And I don't set out to kill the party, but I sure do want to stretch you guys, and challenge you as a player, challenge your character in the game. And, excuse me, goodness. And have you have those moments where you're like looking at each other like, holy shit, did we just survive that? Or wow. There's just, sometimes it's kind of fun for all the blood to run out of your face as your character goes down. Just again for that gritty realism. So to that end, we're hoping that this game will be representative of Greyhawk. Any other thoughts about Greyhawk or how you guys see it or what you guys like in your games when it comes to this sort of thing?
I'd also just throw in about the evil is everywhere. I always think of Greyhawk as evil is everywhere, but it's not always apparent where it is. It's mysterious and shadowy, and there's factions out there who have grand designs on things, and you may not know where they are, who they are, until it's sort of too late. So I think it's shadowy and mysterious and gritty all at the same time.
Yeah, there's like that overt level of darkness, but then there's something just below the surface too.
Right.
It could come up behind you, you wouldn't see it coming.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. Any other thoughts on just the nature, the feel, what you guys are looking for? I know we kind of kicked around that idea. I mean, it's 5e, but we want it to have a little bit more older school feel with regard to that, which is interesting because having a goblin in the party, in the day, there are evil races of demihumans as a race. They're not here to be the welcome wagon. They're kind of their way of life, their culture doesn't always align well with the good peoples of the world. And so here we have in our midst what might be assumed to be a ne'er-do-well.
Yeah, I'm curious how that, now that you're mentioning it, how that is going to play out as we, or if it, how that will affect things as we move about the landscape. It'll be interesting to see.
As am
I
I.
don't know how much thought you put into that, but I'm sure it will be a factor.
The other thing about Greyhawk is a lot of it was obviously developed in a time where the rules were a lot more, it was just tough. And I think that, I'm not sure if that was the actual setting reflected actually the game itself. And as editions moved forward and different settings came about with different editions, there could have been a back and forth with reflection of the setting with the gameplay, the game itself. Mm-hmm. And so if you look through all the old modules and all the old, all the old books that have been published, pre 1990, they're pretty dark. And I think that's where the basis of it really comes from. And not saying someone couldn't make another campaign setting that's as dark as that, but I think that for me, that's where it really comes from, is looking at kind of the modules that I played through as a kid. And it seemed like those really reflected the game style that was played then. And it almost, it couldn't be like a cartoon. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? That
Yeah.
at some level that I don't think the setting could have actually occurred as a cartoon simply because of how the structure of the game was.
Yeah,
And
makes
I
sense.
think it'll be great to kind of transition that with 5e with a little modification.
Mm-hmm.
I also saw, I don't remember where I saw it, but I saw it recently, and it was a discussion about Dungeons and Dragons when it was first created, and how there was this sense that parents were going to get upset that their kids were playing this game, and that the developers at the time, Gygax and those and his cohorts, sort of sat back and said, how do we, make this game in a way that we don't get parents out there with pitchforks and things like that. And what they did was they made sure that they had this good versus evil concept. And it goes back to what we were just talking about a little bit ago with the goblin in the party. I don't think you would have seen that. And in fact, if you look back at the red box and the blue box, you couldn't play a goblin. And I think that was because they wanted to draw the lines of, this is a game about heroes and villains, and evil is evil and good is good, and there's no blurring of the distinctions. And sort of as our society has moved forward, I think 5e is a lot different in that. So you can have the lovable minotaur in your party, and you're not gonna blur those distinctions, and not every orc is an evil orc. And
Right.
so I think 5e sort of incorporates our kinder, gentler society now.
More accepting in terms
more
of
accepting.
individuality. Yeah.
Right. So I think that, in a traditional 5e game, players may not just assume every goblin is an evil goblin. But back in AD&D and basic D&D, you certainly would have made that assumption.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. There's been a very strong effort, intentional effort to sort of remove the idea that you are inherently evil if you are a specific group of people or humanoids or whatever. And ultimately that's a good thing, I think, for gameplay. Yeah.
I do too. I mean, alignment. I mean, a lot of games don't even use alignment anymore. And back when I was playing, I mean, that was, everybody picked their alignment and put it on their character sheet. I in the Wednesday game, sort of towards the end of my involvement in that game, I had happened when I created my character. I'm just so used to putting down an alignment. I had put down an alignment for my character, but hadn't given it any real thought. And then my character touched something, and all of a sudden the DM's asking me, what's your alignment? And thankfully I'd written something down, but I might not have, because it's just less common now than it used to be.
I remember games when I was like 12 or 13, and I can't remember what the mechanism was, but alignment would get shifted. Like all of a sudden your alignment changes, and that would be like that would send off a huge, sequence of events and stuff like that. It just has become less important. It's more about sort of the decisions you make in the role play moment.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the alignment now is really more of a guide for RP than it is a mechanical function of your character. But yeah, I can remember, like, if you played a paladin back in AD&D, man, if you didn't run that paladin lawful good, you'd lose your affiliation with your church or something. Your god might smite you. I mean, we use that a lot in gameplay as a mechanic. We lost Enoch Pratt, by the way. He'll come back and the cameras will right themselves. So
that's how gritty this game is. We've already lost one.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All character classes had alignment kind of restrictions in 1E, which is kind of, it's unusual. You go back to some of those original pages in the player's handbook and some of the tables, which is like, okay, you can only be this and this and this on every class. It wasn't just a paladin; it was across the board. Whether you were a druid or whether you were a cleric or a thief or whatever it might have been, it was pretty specific. And even with races, that certain races could only be certain alignments as well.
Oh yeah, there was a table I remember in one of the books, maybe Unearthed Arcana. I know Jay knows. He's talked about that a lot on Legends and Lore. But there was a table that broke down. They had the races down the one axis and the same races across the top axis, and it create where two particular races came together. It would tell you if they got along well, if they tolerated each other, if they hated each other, and that was how you played the game. And of course, that's kind of ridiculous. It's I'm so happy to see the way D&D has evolved to be a little bit more thoughtful and reflective of how we need to think about this stuff. But I also like it as a gamer, as a guide to create your world. But yeah, I don't think all orcs have to always be evil necessarily. But that was definitely a different time and a different the antipathy chart. There you go. Definitely a different. You're talking the 70s when this stuff was cooked up, and all of this. D&D was much more focused on the martial aspect of the table play than the RP. It's not to say you didn't RP, but it was mostly murder hoboing that I remember as a 14-year-old young man. Kill it and take its treasure. And it all
more XP.
Yeah, because you gained levels by treasure. I mean, you literally, what was that? 10% of your gold were the number of experience points you'd get at the end of the adventure. It all has its genesis in wargaming, in miniature wargaming, chainmail and all that around the table in the early 70s. So, quite an evolution. So we're gonna take the kind of maybe a few of the softer corners of 5e, and we're gonna be playing under that rule set, but we're gonna be playing it in Greyhawk, and hopefully the narrative over time will give you the feel of older school D&D and that gritty darkness. The good isn't automatically just always going to win out in the end, and kind of crappy stuff sort of happens, and there could be danger around various corners. Hey, thanks for the host there, Dave. Hey, Wilson plays in our Monday game, which will go live again after a break tomorrow night. But at any rate, so talking about the game mechanically, one of the things we discussed during the session 0 and today before we came on was, if we're going to make it a little bit more realistic and a little tougher, a little grittier than maybe 5e is what do we do with long rests and natural healing properties and that process? And so what we've been talking about and kind of jotting down is when a character takes a long rest, instead of all of their damage healing back to full hit points, after an 8-hour long rest, we're going to say that half damage taken will heal while long resting. So hey, Dave, I'll tell you, 1 hit point a day, that's how it was back in the good old days, and Pathfinder, right, runs it that way. So, but what we're going to do, let's say you take 20 points of damage on any given day during the day, you long rest, the next day you will have regained 10 back. However many hit dice you expended during a short rest, let's say these characters are all going to start off at 4th level. And you can, for short rest, you can expend half your hit dice instead of you have your choice to use all of them. To regain hit points, we're saying we're capping you at half, so they'll get to expend up to 2 hit die during a short rest, 1 short rest a day. On the long rest, they will regain half of their missing hit die. So at 4th level, they would regain, if they use 2 hit die, they would regain 1. And we're going to round that up because obviously odd levels, you'll have 5 hit die next level. You can use up to 3. So we'll round it on the soft side, in the soft direction. We'll round it up what you can use. And then on that long rest, instead of only gaining 1 hit die back or 1.5, you can have 2. So we're going to try to make it a little more challenging, a little bit more, that if I'm playing in that environment, that causes me to think a little bit before I just lunge into combat or try something crazy, because I'm not going to get the hard reset that we normally get when everything fully, returns to full everything and after that long rest. I'm also thinking about using exhaustion a little bit, where let's say you take over half your hit points and damage. Maybe you pick up a level of exhaustion. Or maybe you make a con save to not have a level of, that sort. So we're just trying to make this a little less, respawn, reset, limitless lives, all of that sort of thing. So any players want to react to that? And again, if you're just joining us, one of the players, their computer froze up, and so our cameras are off until they return. But I have faith that Enoch Pratt will come back one day. So guys, do you all have any thoughts, Dave waving arms, on this healing resting process?
Have a backup character ready.
I got three.
two.
I got Bingo and his two brothers. They're hanging out in City of Greyhawk. So, you know, at
That's
some
right.
level, I'm ready to go. You just give me the word and kill my guy, and I'm ready. But no, I think it's great personally. I think having some skin in the game totally changes decision making, and I think that that's really what it comes down to, is that you don't want to be two Mahoras where you know, you can't move an inch without thinking about your entire party dying, but at the same level having some element of worry about decisions, I think is really important. And so no, I think it's great, and I think what you've done is it's a good balance. It's not too hard, but it's also it does increase the bar set for us to be able to be a little bit more careful.
That's the idea, is just to, again, give it a little bit more, I'm not invincible. Maybe I should think this through a little bit.
Yeah, I personally, I don't mind character death. Like I like having consequences. You know, some people get really attached to their characters, and it can be pretty traumatic if that happens. I've TPK'd my parties a couple times. Sorry guys, but you know, I kind of like it. I would prefer it, hopefully, if that happens. Hebney has an epic death scene, or at least he'll have his life flash before his eyes, all the mistakes that he's made. But I like having the consequences. I think it's gonna add a fun element to this game. So I'm ready for it.
Cool. One of the things too, talking about D&D 5e, is the characters seem to become really, really invincible around 7th, 8th level. And so we're gonna we're playing this game out of a one shot. We're gonna extend the story of the one shot that we ran, and Doc alluded to this. Doc, Enoch, and Dave, Hebney, and Baldwin were characters in that one shot. Daryl is the brother of those characters, but we're gonna start this game as an extension of that one shot. And they were, I think, 4th level on that one. Is that right, Dave?
Mm-hmm.
Bob? Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
And so we're going to start at 4th level, and we're going to use milestone advancement. So the DM gets to pick those spots that seem to narratively make sense when the group's going to advance. But, you know, it is fun and cool to advance, but it's not going to be like every other session.
Hey, Tim.
As it does seem like a cool idea, but it kind of, somebody needs to mute the stream in the background, by the way. It's kind of anticlimactic. As much as we like advancing, you know, it's like if you do it too often, it stops being special. So, you know, we'll do that as the narrative dictates. I'm not saying you're going to be 4th level for the next 2 years of real time. But, you know, and I think Chris and Carl know in my games we don't advance screaming fast. Unless we start at 1st level, I try to move you guys up pretty quickly from 1st to 3rd, just because of early character fragility is definitely a thing in D&D. While death can happen, we'd like to try and maybe establish storylines and relationships and enjoy our characters just a little bit. What's happening? Let's talk for a minute about Longbottom Leaves, shall we? In the spirit of all things Hobbit, South Farthing, land segment of the Shire, known for their tobacco products. And I believe a particularly well looked after brand, if you will, were the Longbottom Leaves. In fact, I believe Bilbo carried a bit of that around in his pouch. And so you are awarded Longbottom Leaves for hanging out in chat. and doing bits. It's just the thing that Twitch has built in there that you can kind of accumulate points, if you will. And here we call them long bottom leaves. And so as you accumulate those, you can spend them to grant advantage. And I'll drop that chat command as I'm explaining. You can grant a player advantage, or you can, and I need to change that, you can redeem 1,000 of them to give the DM advantage or disadvantage. And I will keep track of the DM advantage or disadvantage and make you all aware of that as we kind of proceed. And I can use the advantage anytime I want to. That just gives me the second D20 for a D20 roll. We don't allow advantages on death saving throws because that's just crazy talk. But each of you players, keep track of your own advantages. I'm not going to micromanage that. You don't need me to. And frankly, I just don't want to try to keep things, under control at that level of detail over here on my end. So keep track of the advantages. And I see here that, Blarg has been granted an advantage by Guild Superior. So
Why, thank you, Guild Superior.
Thank you, Guild Superior.
In anticipation of us needing a mastermind in this group.
Yeah. The most
We
valuable.
also need to, I was just going to say, when we're talking about level advancing, we also want to make sure we advance fast enough so we can take advantage of all those great mastermind things that come later.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes.
We are intended to make you useful, Chris.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
It is the group's mission. And I heartily clap your backs for trying. You
we
can
tried
try.
for a year in the Wednesday game.
And it's still, yeah.
Didn't work, huh?
Yep. So as you chat, you accumulate leaves and long bottom leaves, and you can spend those to grant advantage to the players. I will ask the players not to go apeshit crazy giving each other advantage. I don't mind every now and then, especially if you're in dire straits and you could really use one. I'm here to have fun, so let's have fun. But let's not go overboard with giving one another countless mountains and piles of advantages. I also keep track of a little thing. We do a little game with +2s to D20 rolls here, and anytime I get a follow or a subscriber, I will keep track of +2s, and the party can use those. You can add a +2 to a D20 roll. Only one can be used at a time. And if you roll like on an attack roll, you think you're pretty close, you can say, hey man, would a +2 get me to that hit? And I'll let you know. And so right now the party actually has already accrued 6 +2s. We've had 4 subs and a couple of follows. So, and thanks for those subs and follows. Darth and Lando both followed. Yeah. And actually, Hey Wilson gifted some subs, so I got to drop those into the tally as well.
Heck yeah. Hey, Wilson. Thank you.
It's
Way to go, hey, Wilson.
That's Viz on our Wednesday night game. Dave up in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah. So very cool. Very, very cool. So that's how those work. So we've talked about kind of the dark, kind of gritty feel we're going for. We've talked about long rests, short rests, hit dice, hit point recovery. Healing is and can and should be a thing in our game, whether it be by magical or divine means. And so we're not going to touch that. We do happen to have a cleric in the group. Healing potions will probably show up now and then, other items of wellness and joy and things. So that's a way to heal as well, but we're just not giving the party the hard reset at dawn, so to speak, kind of that video game feel. We're going to remove a little bit of that invulnerability that sometimes 5e players enjoy. Spell slots. We'll talk about that for just a second. We're playing those rules as written, RAW. So by whatever means you energize your spell slots, that's how we're doing it. So if you're a wizard, you need to study. If you're a priest of some sort or a divine casting class, you'll need to pray or connect with your patron, whatever your jam is there. And feel free, and we've talked about this, feel free to roleplay that, right? That's part of your character and who they are. It's part of what gives color to your RP. So we'll do it that way. We're not going to count coins and weight and encumbrance. You're not going to get to carry 3 suits of plate mail armor and 10,000 gold and 27 long swords around. But, We're not going to get too into the minutia with encumbrance. Players will track their own hit dice, hit points. We do have the D&D Beyond overlay active. You could see all of the players through that on the stream. I got that kind of jiggled around. Looks like Dave has granted an advantage to each of the players. Thank you very much. So there you all have it. Blarg, you got a couple.
Dave.
The rest of you all have one. So keep track of your own advantages. And, the DM got one too. And Dave, is that an advantage or a disadvantage? One of each? What do you do? Oh, Dave, what's happening here? He's got some tobacco to burn. That's 4, 5. Yeah.
It's already gritty.
If you think your generosity is going to spill over into Monday, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, right.
DM advantages. That's 5. Thank you, Dave. Woo. All right. And the little symbol next to my long bottom leaves is infinity. So if I was really a jerk, I could just give myself, permanent advantage, but we won't do that. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So, and I think it's probably important to note a couple of other game mechanics, and players, you're going to want to write this down. We didn't really talk about that or this on on our session 0, but healing potions, and any potion for that matter, can be imbibed as a bonus action versus having to spend an action to quaff a potion. Okay? So bonus action to quaff a potion, we'll just, operate under the assumption that you all are chug-a-luggers, and you can draw down a potion in a bonus
Especially
action.
Baldwin.
Yes,
Yeah.
especially
Baldwin is...
Definitely a chug-a-lugger.
When is he not chug-a-lugging is the question.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Maybe I'll just keep healing potions in my mug just all the time.
The mug of ever refilling healing potions. Yeah. That is not a magic item. Just can't be too clear about that. So that covers that. Let's talk for a minute about critical hit. So if you score a nat 20 on an attack roll, you will have achieved the glorious critical hit. The way we do it here on this channel, because I like crits to be something better and more damaging than, a regular hit. And the way I like to do it is if you roll a natural 20, you automatically get max damage. And keep it that simple, because by that I mean it's the maximum. So if let's say you're playing and you're wielding a long sword and you have +4 on your damage with the long sword due to strength and whatever else, then you would, if you swing it single-handed, one-handed, that would be a D8. So you could do a maximum of 12 with a successful longsword hit. So with a crit, you automatically get max damage. Then you get to roll the damage die one more time and add that to it. So it's automatically always going to start at the top end of damage, but then you get that additional die roll. So don't overcomplicate it from that. Just remember it's max damage, which includes all of your modifiers, right? Any modifiers that, it's +2 sword, you add +2 to the damage, right? So it's max damage plus any other dice, damage dice. And if you're playing a rogue, raise your hand.
Oh,
yeah. Sneak attack are dice. And sneak attack also go in. Hey, Asher, what's up, my man? Sneak attack also goes into your max damage, doesn't it? So rogues in particular can be very devastating on a crit, because you would get max damage, right? And then your damage die. And if I remember correctly, sneak attacks are damage die, D6s, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's how crits work. Max damage plus reroll and add any damage die. It's that simple. Okay?
I love it.
One short rest per calendar day. And again, we talked about you can use up to half your hit dice maximum on a short rest. You regain half of the hit die you've lost on a long rest. You regain half of the hit points you suffered in damage on a long rest. And we had a great question Carl asked earlier. Well, what happens if on Monday I take 20 damage and I long rest Monday night? Tuesday I wake up and I've healed 10 back. Let's say on Tuesday I take no damage but I don't heal. Wednesday when I awaken, I've healed 5 more. So you're kind of cutting something in half over and over and over again as you're healing naturally. which to me feels like a good cadence to represent, natural healing, that sort of thing. I think I'll probably doink you guys pretty good if you get into some like really bad, like you got 80 hit points and you took 74 damage in a combat. Or, if you get reduced to 0, I feel like that should include some exhaustion. I don't know, something about dying and going unconscious feels like that should be exhausting, So I'm going to play with that a little bit, mostly for just realism. Make it tough. So, yeah. Taco Bell, nice, Asher. Asher was in this one shot with us when this ran at Virtual Greyhawk Con, so good to see you, bud. So, any other thoughts, questions, game mechanics? Am I missing anything? Chris or Dave in chat? Carl?
I don't think so.
I mean, stuff will come up in game and all that stuff. We play the Rule of Cool. We're not real super big on the rules lawyering thing. I mean, I want to get it right, but I, by no stretch of the imagination, am an expert in Dungeons & Dragons 5e. I'm solid. But I'm also old and I sleep, not enough sometimes, and I mess up, and so we do Rule of Cool, and for us, I think we've kind of agreed it's really all about the narrative, the good time, and we're gonna just kind of do the Rule of Cool. We will run Theater of the Mind primarily, but again, I need to up my DM game and start getting comfortable with building out some things on some form of a VTT. I haven't decided which, because Roll20 it just feels a little bit intimidating to me because I'm not incredibly tech savvy, but I've heard of a thing called Owlbear Rodeo that's supposed to be a little less technically demanding on the game master. So I may take a peek at that at some point, but I will drop with you some graphics and things and stuff as I go. And maybe someday we'll actually get to, fog of war, lighting, and all that, just give me time. Any thoughts about that, or any other ideas, thoughts as we talk Session 0 stuff here? Hey, thanks, Lando. Appreciate that, buddy.
Yeah, that all sounds great.
All right.
I think so too.
Cool. Well, let's go ahead.
One quick question.
Yeah, man.
During this, have we leveled up?
Not yet.
At least
Yeah.
one level,
Not yet.
right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you have. I know you should get to level up for having to listen to me pontificate
After all
for
that.
Yeah, all my talking. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the game, shall we? And by that I mean the story. So this again comes out of a one shot called Murder in Caverick's Cove, and by Caverick's Cove, I mean this. And you're going to see on stream here when the delay picks up the cover to the module we're going to be playing in right now. And I got this really good friend. His name's Carlos. He goes by CASL Entertainment. Carlos A.S. Lysing. And Carlos is an absolutely prolific creator of Dungeons & Dragons modules for Osric, right? The old school rules set. When he runs his games, man, it's first edition D&D, and he runs it by the book, and he's old school, and everything's set in Greyhawk. And his modules, because of WotC intellectual property, they're set in Greyhawk, but all the names are changed. You can't use any of that stuff, so you have to kind of retcon it. But we are going to be playing out of a module called While on the Road to Caverick's Cove. And it's sort of his homage to Hamlet, in that it's a small fishing village set on the eastern shores of Ratic, on the Solanor Ocean, Grendep Bay. It's dry air mass. It's wicked windy winters, snow. It's up against the Rakers. It's between the Rakers and the ocean, and then the barbarian lands to the north. There's hills and a veil of wild between Ratic and the Bone March and the Great Northern Kingdom. It's in the east central Flanaess. And so our game is going to be set in Ratic. And the one shot took place. It was a kind of a murder mystery. And the party was tasked with finding a guy by the name of Dunbar Fortin, who is suspected of murdering a citizen of Caverick's Cove. And rumor has it that Fortin murdered this guy. Last name Hayerson. Let me see if I can get his first name. Por. P-O-R, Harrison. And Fortin and Hayerson, excuse me, were adventuring buddies. Fortin sees himself as quite the enterprising, sort of a rogue scallywag, man about town, but strong adventurer, fighter, toughness about him as well. Pretty clever, great survivalist. And they ventured to the north, well up around the north of the Bay of Grindip. In fact, they were actually not too terribly far from where Baldwin O'Farrell calls home. And they went up there and they did some adventuring, and they came back with some treasure. This map right here that you see is from Anna Meyer. I think this is my command. No, I'll figure it out. But Anna Meyer creates really badass cartography. She's mapped out the Flanaess, and this is her work. There we go. You can find her stuff on that link. Hey, thanks, Dave. Appreciate you backing me up there. But you can see Radhick where it's indicated there. Caverick's Cove is kind of halfway between Marner and Devonmeek, right on the coast, southeast of the town of Grass Flats that you see there. The party, for whatever reason, here and there, whatever, shall be determined later, discovered later, however you like to say it, found themselves in Caverick's Cove. And the Mercenary Guild is the place to go if you want work. And so there was a couple of the party members were called there, summoned there, found themselves there, but for whatever reason, the 4 party members had an interest in finding Dunbar Fortin. A local resident by the name of Astvar Sigurdsson, best friends with the decedent, poor Hayerson, put a bounty for the capture of Dunbar Fortin. You see, neighbors saw Fortin enter and leave Hayerson's home. The next morning, Hayerson's body was found. He was murdered. Fortin's boot prints were found at the site of the scene of the crime. Fortin's engraved dagger was found beside Hayerson's body. Sheriff Luscan put together a group of searchers, if you will, a search party to find Fortin, because he was nowhere to be found when the body of Hayerson was discovered deceased. Just to give you some dates. Harvester was the month. The year 599 CY. Hayerson's body was found on God's Day 4 Harvester, 4th of Harvester. Fortin's dagger, the boot prints, and a spyglass. Spyglass is such that might be used by a ship's captain. Very fine, ornate, beautiful gold, little gems, and inscribed in a strange language that was deciphered. The word "the Spectre" on the spyglass. These were found at Hayerson's home. The sheriff puts together a search party. Sheriff Lucan, organizes on 4 Harvester a search party to go find and retrieve Dunbar Fortin, who is a resident of Caverick's Cove. And the reason he does this, the sheriff, because of the eyewitness accounts. People say they saw Fortin coming and going the evening before Hayerson is murdered, or his corpse is found, I should say. And so this search group, far and wide, leagues around Caverick's Cove. And as you can see by the Rotic map, Caverick's Cove is on the coast, and it's not marked specifically on the map, but it's a cliff side down to kind of a beach. And I'll put a map of Caverick's Cove up here momentarily. But just think of kind of a craggy coastline a la Maine, United States. Nor'easters blow in. Weather can be rather rough year-round, particularly brutal in the winter. But this naturally sheltered cove with some history to it exists, and it's called Caverick's Cove. And all three, Sigurdsson, the surviving friend, Hayerson, the victim, and Fortin, are all residents of Caverick's Cove. So Sheriff Lucan sends this search party out to find him. And they go out for a good month. And no luck. So by the end of Harvester, by Free Day 28 Harvester, Lucan calls off the search for Dunbar Fortin and advises officials, sends word as far and wide as Marner and Devonmeek and Raddick Hill far to the south to be on the lookout for someone fitting Dunbar Fortin's description. So word is out. Moon Day Patchwall. Patchwall's the next month after Harvester. Astvar Sigurdsson opens a bounty at the Mercenary Guild's Mercenary Hall, the Guild House of Mercenaries, I should say. And who do you think is there? Our intrepid heroes. And they express an interest in this bounty, in finding Dunbar Fortin. And Astvar Sigurdsson is beside himself with rage. And in fact, the bounty is tripled if the party can return with Fortin alive. Because obviously, Sigurdsson and Hayerson are like brothers. They fish together. That's the vocation. They are of the Schnai of the North, barbarians of the North, the culture of fishing barbarians. They are of that lineage. You see Caverick's Cove and Rotic is made of quite a diverse population. But the Schnai community in Caverick's Cove is a little bit suspected because of back in the day, when the barbarians came down from the north and raided the human lands. The Schnai were among them. And so there's always been a little, suspicion cast at these folks. And so because of that, the community of Schnai in Caverick's Cove is a close one, a close-knit one. They look out for each other. They look out for one another. And so Sigurdsson, not a happy guy. Let's see here. I got to find the bounty just to give you an idea of the cost. Yeah, 25 gold apiece per party member that goes on this little adventure. 3 times that if they bring Fortin back alive. And so the party visits with Sigurdsson at his home. One interesting occurrence is there's a letter waiting for Bingo Nimblebottom, Doc Shoulder's character, at the home of Astvar Sigurdsson, which seems rather coincidental. But Sigurdsson presents that letter to Nimblebottom. Let me see if I can recall just what the letter said. I can because I'm the DM and I have the notes. Yes. Aye, Bingo. God's praise ye if you're reading this, my boy. Your man is on the run. Sheriff and Sigurdsson think I murdered Hayerson. Ye know better than that. I may be a bit greedy and a little shifty, but I ain't gonna take a friend's life over treasure. Let my surname lead ye to where I be. Find me deep within me surname if you remember what that might be. I don't dare say more in case they get this before you do. Hurry along and bring help. We need to get me away and figure out how to clear my name. And it's signed C.A., Knight of the Flaming Fist. And through conversation and discovery and Bingo's Iron Trap memory, he recalls that Dunbar Fortin has an alias. Do you remember what that is, Doc?
Stretching my memory here.
I'm
can't
just
remember.
stalling because I'm trying to find it in my notes.
Okay.
But I
It
thought
was
I'd
something
ask.
Aldergrove,
It's
wasn't it?
Blarg. It was
Kalen
Blarg.
Aldergrove. Yeah,
It
Blarg.
was
Yeah, it was
Blarg.
Blarg the Goblin.
It's Blarg. Anything that I don't know, it's just going to be Blarg.
Be Blarg. That's good. So it was Kalen Aldergrove, Knight of the Flaming Fist. So he basically told you where to find him, ish. Bingo knows that Dunbar is an excellent survivalist. He knows Dunbar is very, very familiar with the lands north and west, up toward Grass Flats and beyond. And so the party decides that's the way we're going to go. And so flash forward a period of time. They stop in Grass Flats. And they visit the outfitter Yarvin at Yarvin's Goods and Sundries. Very cleverly named establishment in Grass Flats. Grass Flats is a larger town than Caverick's Cove. If you look on the Roddick map, if you can see it there, I will drop that map into Discord for my players so that you may familiarize yourselves with that. But in Grass Flats, and this is a town of a number of taverns, a few small churches to deities who are worshipped, St. Cuthbert, Paylor, and the like. Good-sized town, where Caverick's Cove may have 500 souls, let's say. Grass Flats, 4,000. Good-sized town. And you go to this outfitter, Yarvin's, and you meet with the proprietor. And if memory serves, Bingo and the proprietor have a conversation, and you all learn that he had, in fact, seen Fortin, or Kalen Aldergrove, if you will, heading northwest out of Grass Flats some time ago. And I can give you a little bit of a timeline here. He last saw Fortin in Grass Flats. Let's see here. He saw him first and second of Harvester. In fact, he was in town through 4 Harvester and gone again. And then back in town on 6 Harvester, Fortin came back aware of the search. Word had reached him. Again, Fortin is an expert. In fact, Blarg and Fortin probably share some skills, share some expertise. So Fortin became aware of the search and so decided to go underground as Kalen Aldergrove. Visits Yarvin, gets his alternative identification together, and vanishes. And that's the last that Yarvin has seen of Dunbar Fortin, or now Kalen Aldergrove. Any of this ringing a bell, Doc? Dave, coming back to you? Hebney?
Oh yeah,
It's
absolutely.
coming back.
Blarg.
Nice. It's all Blarg to me. Yeah.
Blarg's
Okay.
fault.
So they head northwest from Grass Flats, another couple of days travel. It's a few days from Caverick's to Grass Flats. Guys, you could probably see that map now in what you call it. And I'll put a link to Anna's maps if you guys want to have that up. I am not opposed to that. You guys are all 4th level. You know the region. I'll drop a link to Anna's interactive map online that you can zoom in and out of and all of that to have while you play, while we're
Now that
chatting.
we're looking at Anna's map, tell me again where Caverick's Cove falls.
Sure. If you see Grass Flats,
Yeah.
if you're going to go not along that white road, but along a much narrower trail out to the coast from there,
Yeah.
Caverick's Cove is out there.
So basically it's on a similar plane with Grass Flats.
Yeah, maybe just a little further south toward that orange boundary.
Okay.
But yes, Very similar latitude, longitude line as grass flats.
Nice. There's like a little curvy part
Yep.
that, might even be cove-like.
Might even be cove-like. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to drop the link to Anna Meyer's maps into chat for our viewers if you wish to have this. Oh, there's no dropping links. You have to type them. Okay, well, we'll get around to that later. And I will put that map into Discord. So you guys all save that.
Thank you.
Please use it as you see fit.
It's an amazing resource.
It's incredible. Radek is up in the right-hand quadrant, the northeast, as you zoom into the map of the Flanaess. So the party ventures past grass flats and out into the wilds, the grasslands, the hills, the crags, in search of Dunbar Fortin, knowing that Dunbar is an excellent survivalist, skilled huntsman, good with a sword, a short sword. And whilst on the road to wherever Fortin may be, they are beset by a pack of gnolls. I don't know if you guys remember that. Little rough encounter with some gnolls. You managed to fight through that. Worked out okay. Everybody made it. But it was a little bit tough. And so you find yourselves hunting and searching. And by this time, everybody's kind of figured out we're probably looking for a stand of alder trees, a grove of alders. Very, very sneaky, clever story craft there. Oof. And so it is that you finally happen into a rather boggy part of the territory up there. Tall grasses, if you recall. Much taller than most of you. I'm trying to remember.
That's not tough.
What type of character Asher played. Asher was our fourth. What's that?
He was a big guy.
He
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was kind of your tanko. And so you find yourselves poking about in this alder grove, and alders are known for growing in rather boggy conditions. Beautiful trees, thick canopy. There are a few clearings here and there, even a place, a bit of a circle, if you will, that seemed rather arranged, even though it was clearly quite the handiwork of Biori herself, perhaps, the matron of the old faith. But you also found an interesting pond with a beaver lodge, if you recall. Rather large pond. Gnawed beaver trees, felled limbs and trees, and all signs of beaver action. But this is where things became rather exciting, if I recall. A great evil entered the bog. And you found yourselves going toe-to-toe with a rather horrifying undead thing, sort of sorceress looking, if I remember correctly, tattered robes, just generally really scary and corporeal, not so much spectral. Nasty looking thing. I think maybe it had a good bit of spellcasting ability, if memory serves. And this thing sort of happened upon you by surprise. And so as we got to the end of our one-shot, and by that I mean right to the end of our one-shot, battle was joined. Survivors were numerous, with the exception of this thing. And in the din and clamor of battle, none other than Kalen Aldergrove himself shows, if you recall. And so it's the five of you, Kalen / Dunbar, Baldwin O'Farrell, Bingo Nimblebottom, Hebney Craigbeam, and dude whose name I don't recall, played by Asher the Bear.
I think it was Harg the Sword.
Harg.
Yeah.
Harg. It was Harg.
Harg. Probably in some way, shape, or form related to
Blarg. So
It was Blarg's
that'll be our
distant brother.
Brothers from other mothers.
That's right.
Yes.
If you don't know something, just holler one of those names.
And something good is bound to occur. Yes. And so battle was joined, and the party won through, and they slew the vile undead denizen who was particularly bent upon Fortin, and it knew that Kalen Aldergrove, I don't know if you kind of recall that or picked up on that, it kept screeching at him and demanding his sword and his ring, and demanding vengeance upon his name, that his lair had been ransacked and befouled by Fortin and Hayerson, cackling about how Hayerson had met an untimely end, and thanking the party for leading him to his ultimate prey. And it is there we had to end our one shot because we were like 45 minutes past time and other games were going and we needed to raid into, I think it was Lord Gazumba maybe we raided into. But at any rate, that's where our tale ended in October. And it is there that our tale shall begin here in January with Secrets of the Flanaess. Our party is currently in the Boggy Grove with Dunbar Fortin. Present are Hebony Cragbeam, Baldwin O'Farrell, and Bingo Nimblebottom. Yeah. How about that? And in fact, let's do this. I'm going to jump into D&D Beyond here. If you guys have anything you want to add to the tale, now would be a great time while I'm searching around. If there's anything I missed or any other embellishments you recall, please dive in with those while I do a bit of reconnoitering.
I had a question just for clarification. Did Bingo happen to grab the spyglass when we were in Caverick's Cove? I couldn't remember if he had stolen that or if we had that or not.
If I remember, we took everything, and I think we got the spyglass when we were searching the house. I don't know if you remember when we were searching.
Yeah.
And we found I think the chest was under the floorboards, and
we also have a special sword box that you made, and there's a sword in it, so we have that as well.
But then there was a slot for something else in that
There's
box.
a secret compartment that I'd built.
That's right.
Yes, that's right. Very good. And who has the sword box?
I have the sword in the sword box. Baldwin.
Yes, because if memory serves, didn't Fortin ask you, Hebony, to make that sword case?
Yes.
Because he had
did.
been on an adventure and got a sword and wanted a place to keep his retrieved items. Because you are currently working in Caverick's Cove. Now it's all flooding back.
That's right. I have a
at the
workshop
Puntier's Bounty, if I remember correctly, down at the waterfront.
Well, I rent a small workspace from Harbor Master Karas,
Yes.
and I've tried to make myself as useful as possible in Caverick's Cove, and I'm trying really hard not to get kicked out of town.
So
my
far, so
attitude.
good. So far, so good. Yeah, it's called Procan's Bounty. That's the collection of buildings down at the wharf at the seashore, where Karas, the harbor master, and you've got yourself a workspace rented there. Yeah, and that's where you fashioned that sword case. That's right. Very good.
Also working on something secret in my workshop that I can't really talk about right now.
Nice. Excellent.
Or I'd have to kill you.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah. Certain people would be unhappy. Yes, so you do. You got the spyglass from the crime scene. I do recall now. You did investigate Hayerson's home. You went and partied with Sigurdsson, had brunch and waffles and things. Lutefisk, if memory serves. Pickled, dried, rotted fish.
I can't remember. Did we get a ring? I don't know if there was. I don't think we had a ring.
I don't think there was.
No, but wasn't the size of the special compartment the size of a ring?
Yeah, it would be
could fit a
small
ring.
that you would put
Yeah.
something small and valuable. But I don't recall there being anything in the sword case. Was there a sword in there?
I thought it was empty too.
I thought it
I'm
was
pretty
empty
sure it
too.
was empty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So
but
what
we
else?
We found the sword somewhere, and we realized it goes in the case.
Did we?
I'm
Or
not sure if we found the sword. I think
Okay.
the only thing we have is the spyglass in the case
and Dunbar's
Well,
dagger.
and Dunbar's.
And the dagger, that's what it is, maybe.
Yeah,
Tim.
you have his dagger that was presumably the murder weapon. It was covered in
Murder weapon.
blood laying there beside Hayerson. And it was Fortin's. It has Fortin's name etched upon the blade.
This is what happens when old people, spend some time in between.
Yeah. This
It's
is
been
what
a while.
happens. Yep. But we've pieced it together,
Well,
which is the whole purpose
Yeah.
of our getting together today. And I love that this video will serve as a nice hard start for our game. We've got character background developed. We've brought the story forward to this very moment in time. And now I think would be an excellent time for us to take a 5-minute break because I have certain elements about me that would like us to do so. And so let us do this. It is 3:01 by my timepiece in Eastern Time Zone here in Ohio. Let's come back at 3:06, well rested and ready to go. I've got a hard stop at the latest at 4:30, just because I got some other things I got to get to after this. But let's take 5, and we'll see you at 3:06. Don't go away, friends. We'll be back, and we're probably going to have to start D&D after that.
Oh yeah, we got some questions for Dunbar Fortin.
That's right. All right, we'll be back. Okay, friends, we're back. So we're at the Grove. Battle was joined. Battle was won. There were zombies. We kind of forgot there were some zombies, sort of like almost like guardians of the Grove itself. But Daryl / Bingo, Doc, tell us a little bit about what happened as you vanquished the dark foe. Something rather unnatural occurred.
Yeah, as I remember it, there was the party was taking some pretty heavy damage, and we were somewhat at our last wits, and then there was almost like a bright light that came out of nowhere, and I can't the spell that was cast. I can't remember the spell that was cast, but it was a powerful spell that basically took down that kind of spectral being that we were actually fighting, and basically was able to save the party from probably a TPK at the end of that of our session.
Got a little intense there at the end, if memory serves.
Yeah.
Yeah. I seem to recall something similar. Okay. And so that's where our narrative will begin. The party, the one-shot party, Harg, Asher's character, Hebney, Bingo Nimblebottom, adopted brother of Daryl, and Baldwin O'Farrell, standing in this grove of alder trees, rather spongy, boggy, dark. You picture moss hanging down. It's beautiful and dark all at once. It's almost breathtaking, the freshness of the air with the mustiness of the bog juxtaposed. Almost don't seem like they could be possibly together, and yet there they are. It is, for lack of any other really good thing to say, it's probably late in the day. Shadows have begun to grow long. And there you are, the four of you and Kaelin Aldergrove, standing over the motionless corpse of this vile, now dead undead, after this blinding light kind of almost like it descended from the heavens themselves, this silvery, this pale light, and it enveloped and ended this thing.
Hebney's gonna pick himself up and kind of brush off some of the mud and the muck that's in his face, on his face and in his hair, and turns to the group and back to Fortin. Fortin, Aldergrove, you've got some splaining to do. You're wanted. You're a wanted man, and you're worth monies.
Indeed I am.
What the hell's going on here?
Thank you for saving me. And he brushes himself off, and he's eating a whey bread and all of this. And he looks at Bingo, and he goes over to Bingo, and he hugs him. Bingo, me man, you got me message. Clever.
I got your message. I got your message. But you got to tell me what just happened here.
That all I can say must have been the spirit of the sorcerer we apparently stole from, in his opinion. I call it treasure hunting. And he kind of rests his hand on the hilts of his short sword, beautiful short sword in a scabbard.
It's all good and fine, but tell us, did you kill Harrison or not?
No, we're friends. I wouldn't kill him. We adventured together.
Yeah, the sheriff and the others think you done it.
Well, of course they do.
Not the least of which is Sigurdsson. He's put out quite a bounty on ya.
He starts laughing. I'm sure he has. You leave him to me. I can handle old Asvar Sigurdsson. Nothing but a graybeard seaman is he.
You got the means to... Go ahead.
I was going to say, are you going to come back with us? So we need to take you back.
We need to clear
You
my
got our
name.
full bounty.
We need to clear my name. Yeah, and see
We
to it
needs
that
our
you
gold.
get your bounty. Yes, indeed. You've done, I'm sure, what you've set out to do, unless, of course, they sent you to end me. And he kind of looks over the party.
Well, we actually get paid more if we bring you back alive.
Oh, well then, it's decided. Very nice. And as you're speaking, from above you, and I'll go ahead and have you guys roll perception. Let's just do that. Let's roll some dice. We're going to roll dice here. This is a Dungeons and Dragons adventure. Let us start by rolling dice.
Natural 1 for a total of 2.
Excellent.
Um,
Good news is there's no crit fails on ability checks, so it's just a 2.
Right.
I rolled a 5, and then I have a +2.
Woo, you guys. Bingo, how'd you do there, buddy?
15 plus 1. 16.
Nice, so 16, yeah. So as you're standing there talking, all at once, a large shadow descends from somewhere in the canopy. And by large, I'm talking like an 8-foot, 9-foot wingspan. This large, feathered, sleek-looking, the body is probably the size of a small dog. Not a toy dog, a small dog, like a 20-pound dog, like a pug, for instance. Large wings, and it drops onto a fallen tree trunk, and it's this great black owl, and its head turns like it does. Very throaty, meaty hoot. Woohoo! And it looks at you all. And it looks down at the corpse of this unspeakable aberration. And before you, you see this owl, and this thing stands a good 3 feet tall when perched on the... It kind of, folds its wings in and preens a bit. And then it transforms rather quickly. A little mist swirls around it, and you see within the mist the form grows to human-sized. And before you, as the mist swirls away, stands about a 5'7" looks to be human, female, bald, but for a knot of thick hair that's braided, tied with maybe bits of vine, bits of supple greenery, woven throughout the braids, kind of falling down her shoulder, down the front of her very, very dark brown robes. There's a hood thrown back. Her skin is very dark complected, dark olive toned. And she stands there with these eyes that radiate depth and wisdom and empathy as she studies you. The robe itself goes down almost to her tops of her feet, which are bare inside some leather thong strap sandals. Very lithe looking frame under the thick robes, from what you can tell. And embroidered upon the robes are some of these sigils and markings. In fact, I'll let anybody who wishes to try and determine what those might be roll a religion check. And there are also leaves and sprigs of this greenery and that, embroidered in various shades of greens and browns that stand out on her robes. How'd y'all do on your religion check?
I only got a 4.
Okay.
We got a 5.
Ebony is going to refrain from rolling because I don't know much about religion at all.
Yeah, you probably could give a shit less.
Yeah.
Very nice. That's fair. It looks... It's hard to describe. The symbols that you see on there, I would say, Baldwin, you would probably recognize them as very, very old runes. Flan. Some Flan origin. The various symbols on there are various sizes and depictions, but they all look to depict a rather rotund female in sort of a circular shape, wrapped around as if she's wrapped around a sphere.
Yep.
And this musical, deep for a female, deep voice. Welcome to my grove. I'm Fidelma, druid of the old faith. Welcome to my most sacred place. Thank you. And she bows a bit. Thank you for ridding us of this horrible, horrible being.
So Baldwin is going to do a really big sweeping bow and says, "Milady, Baldwin O'Farrell at your service."
Well met,
Hebney
good dwarf.
follows suit and kind of looks over and bows as well as he rolls up a tobacco leaf cigarette.
Bingo doesn't say anything. He just kind of looks really who is this person, and kind of puts his cloak back up over his head and really kind of skirts behind the rest of the crowd and kind of slides into the shadow a little bit.
Okay. Please don't trouble yourselves. You're safe here. I had to step in at the end there. I hope you don't mind, but it wasn't going well.
Aye.
So
Indeed.
Thanks, you.
called upon the moon itself, and the Mother Earth bestowed her glory, her goodness, and rid us of this vile being. Pray tell, who or what was after you? And she looks at Fortin and smiles. Good to see you, Kalen. And he smiles. Yes, good to see you, Sister Earth. As if they maybe know one another.
Well, we be among friends. Tell us, what was that creature?
She looks to the heavens, which really is just a dark canopy of the alders. It was a twisted thrall of some and she kind of gets a shiver and a shadow runs across her. A thrall of maybe the darkest fae. It was obedient to some greater darkness, and it was here with purpose for your service to the grove, for dispatching the guardians, the zombies. Perhaps I might be able to divine a bit more of its intent, if you'll allow me.
With that, Hebney kind of looks over at the carcass, at the body, the remains of this creature. Is there anything, let's say, to search?
Sure. So it's wearing tattered, sort of this dark turquoise, what looks like maybe the remains of a cloak. There are pieces of banded mail, leather mail, hard leather tall boots. Everything is still like smoking and smoldering. There's a broken staff of some unknown, maybe, what's the word I'm looking for? Petrified wood. You recall it cast like it had this claw that it could sort of turn its hand into, this spectral claw that it was attacking with, and it also shot these like bolts of dark energy that rotted away the flesh, and so forth. And other than that, aside from that, other than its leggings, it's almost as if it's dressed for sea travel, but there's this arcane, evil darkness look about it. And it was a spellcaster. This thing called down some nasty stuff upon the party, if you recall. And there's nothing else there with it, save this gray, pallid corpse that's laid twisted. You can see its ribs. Part of the face is burned away. There's a circlet of what looks like maybe bone that they're like tall spikes in the front, and they come down and go around, and it's all one piece, but there's an open slot. They don't connect in the front. It goes upward into these spikes, and it's just laying there, smoldering.
Madam,
Ooh,
Mistress, Madam,
Yes.
Druid,
Yes, good gnome.
this cursed pile, do we burn it?
Not yet. Perhaps, again, with your blessing. And she looks over at Dunbar. I know you've been hiding. You told me your story. Perhaps I might divine a little something from this thing that might help us, help your cause. I see good in you, and I do not believe that you've committed the crimes of which you are accused. And Fortin nods. Of course, yes, please. I will need help to clear my name. All right, then. And she kneels, crouches down one knee, not fully prostrated or anything, and closes her eyes and sort of leans over the body of this thing. Hang on a second. Should have had this up before. So sorry. And she clasps her palms together. She also happens to have an oaken staff that she has. It seems to be carved, but I guess the right word for it is formed. It looks as if it had been carved because it doesn't look natural, yet there it is. It's very ornate. It's a little bit like Gandalf's staff, you know, how it kind of had the forking in it, so forth. So she lays her staff across the corpse and is down on one knee and leans over it, places her hands upon the chest calmly. And you hear her very clearly incanting something in a language none of you understand unless any of you are maybe worshippers of the old faith. And she sits and just slowly rocks back and forth. And this goes on for 5 minutes or so. What do you all do while she is doing her thing?
Well, Baldwin is going to reach into his backpack and pull out a small cask, and he's going to pour up some stout into his mug and start imbibing.
Very well. Bingo?
Bingo is going to actually ask Fortin, does this creature look familiar to him? Because obviously it sounds like there's some element of what this creature used to be, and that's part of what he is right now. And does he recall this? Does Fortin recall anything familiar about this creature that's down here from your past? Maybe that might be able to give us some idea who or what it is.
I've not seen it before, but I know Harrison and we raided a lair up in the crags to the north, around the northeast side of Grendep Bay, on an island. And that's where I got my sword. You made my case, right, Hebney?
Aye.
Very well. That's where I got my sword. And this ring here, and he shows you a gold ring on his hand.
What about the spyglass? You get that there too, then?
What spyglass?
Show him, Baldwin, the spyglass.
So we pull it out and we show him the spyglass.
Yeah, he takes it. Has a look at it, turns it over. Hey, see this? And he points at the runes inscribed. The Spectre. That's the name of the ship of the ruins we were exploring. This here apparition. He mentioned he come for his sword and his vengeance. I know who this is.
His items be cursed, then?
No,
Fortin.
no. Oh, no. Quite valuable, I'll tell you. And he pulls the short sword out. And closes his eyes and holds it out from him rather conspicuously. In no one's direction, by the way. and he mutters the word Runya. And much to your surprise, the sword leaps to flame. Oh, the blade of the sword, flame swirls around it. Ah, what do you think of that? You should see it in action. Sharp as the day it was forged, no doubt, but she burns too. And then he closes his eyes and the flame extinguishes. And just you see kind of the steam, the heat radiate from the blade as he puts it back in the sheath. That's why I need the case. It's for this.
Hey,
And this
case
ring,
fitting of a wonderful weapon like that.
this ring gives me a thicker hide. I don't know how to explain it. I can dodge. Weapons don't bite like they used to. It's a very, very, very valuable ring. And as you all are speaking and he's sharing these items with you, these came from the lair of a great sorcerer in the northeast. She looks up and makes eye contact with Fortin. And she says, Duran Evwald, and nods. And Fortin's eyes go, and you just see kind of the blood leave his face. Aye, lady of the wood. Yeah, hey, that's him. That's the sorcerer. And she looks down. This is him. Or this is what used to be him. Yes, he's come for vengeance. He come for his sword and his ring, and it is he who killed Harrison. You see, I asked Mother Earth if you're guilty or not, and she assured me that you are not guilty of this murder. But this corpse at our feet, Duran Evwald, is guilty.
That's all fine and good, miss, but is there evidence we can take back to the sheriff?
Evidence indeed. Well, that's an entirely different matter now, isn't it?
Yep.
If we don't have the evidence we need, Dunbar, you'll be hanging.
Hey, he kind of leans on one of the trees and kind of see him thinking. Well, what will we do then? Maybe we take this corpse back. She stands and brushes off her robes. This is what's known as a deathlock. It's what happens when a warlock is called from the grave to serve its patron one last time. These items, they must have some connection to the warlock's patron, Dunbar. And it meant to get them back. And it was using this foul Duran Evwald. It can cast powerful magics, illusions, disguises. There's no doubt that there are witnesses, you told me, who saw you there. Yet, you were... Where did you say you were, Dunbar? He says, oh, I was in Grass Flats with Kelsey Yarvin. That much.
Huh?
I wasn't even in Caverick's Cove when all of this occurred.
If we can convince Yarvin to testify, perhaps we clear ye name.
Oh, he will. We can take this here back and show him.
Well, Bingo asked
This here spyglass comes from his ship. Where'd you find it?
It
Heavy
was
looks
in,
at Baldwin.
Yeah.
Nice.
We found it in the murder victim's house when we were searching.
Hey. Must have dropped it then? I don't know. And what of my dagger? I lost it. Sometime ago.
That was at the murder scene.
Well, it must have had my dagger then. He reaches. May I have it?
Who's got it? Me or Bingo?
Whoever has it, yeah.
I don't remember. Do you have it, Bingo? Or does it
I
have
think
it?
I have it. So I give Fortin the dagger. But at the same time, Bingo asks the kind of druid woman that's there, if we give the sword and the ring back to the creature, will that return or remove
Hey,
the-
wait, just a minute. I won these items fair and square through my
Hey, don't you want to get clear to
research
your name, right?
and
You want to
my
get clear you
my
can earn
wiles
some.
and my expert treasure hunting. I don't just give these things away now. These are
Yeah,
mine.
well, we'll see you hang.
Well, Yarvin will clear me. We've got a story from Miss Fidelma here.
If we can find him.
Oh, Yarvin's easy enough to find. He'll be in Grass Flats at the outfitter. Enough coin, and he'll come to Cavrix on my behalf. He owes me a thing or two.
Fortin, the question is, will this patron of this foul warlock come looking for its items? You could be in danger. That's something to consider.
I can't imagine he's just going to stop. He's just going to keep coming.
Agreed.
If only we had a mastermind to help us figure this out.
We need a mastermind.
Bark!
Harg. Blarg.
Bark!
Bark.
Pause.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, I just know I need my name cleared. What am I to do with these items? I can't just leave them to the tree fairies. No offense, milady. And Fidelma kind of rolls her eyes. None taken, Fortin. Perhaps the best thing to do would be to see good done with these. In my hand. After all, we've dispatched this great evil. We've ended the curse of the island. The curse of the specter is broken. We've the spyglass. We've ended the wretched darkness and his minions. What more? If Jiran is ended, then surely the pact between him and the whatever dark evil spirit, and he kind of like mumbo jumbo, in the air, kind of mocking it a little bit. Surely that has been broken.
Well, it's a decision you'll have to make, Dunbar, but if you be putting others at risk, well, it'll be on your fate to pay for it. Speaking of paid, I'd like to get my cut of that gold for bringing you back to Cavrix Cove.
Hey, we should turn back.
Here.
We should turn back and leave the lady in peace. And he turns to Fidelma. I thank you for allowing me sanctuary in your grove here. She nods. It was a pleasure. I don't have many visitors. It was nice to have some company such that it is. He kind of smirks. Hey then. Well, shall we be on our way then? Back to Grass Flats, I suppose.
Hey.
Nice. All right. So, Fidelma kind of looks at you. With the corpse, shall I dispose of this, or will you want it for evidence?
How big is it?
That's a human size. So, 5'11", 6 foot. It's rather bony, pretty light. Oh, here comes some advantages from our good friend Obsidian Risk.
Thank you, Obsidian Risk.
Yeah, man. Very, very generous. I see 4. I see 5. So each player take an advantage. Mark that on your notes or character sheet.
Thanks, Obsidian.
Very nice.
If this were a democracy, I think Hebney would probably vote to burn it and not take it back to Cavrix Cove because he thinks it's cursed.
That's a good point.
If we can get Yarvin to testify and vouch, that's probably the most powerful evidence in his mind.
I think we leave it with her and let her take it and kind of make do with whatever she wants to do with it. And you never know, it might come back. We might be able to use kind of her help later. And if we give this to her, maybe she'll be able to help us at a later time.
Agreed.
Sounds good to me.
Very well.
What do you think, Harg? Okay,
Yeah.
we'll do it then.
Yeah, sounds good.
Arg!
I'll see to it that the remains are disposed of appropriately. Thank you for saving or helping protect the sanctity of my grove. And this, it took you a while to get into the center of this thing. It's multiple acres, probably 10, 12 acre grove of alder trees and swampish, kind of boggy sponginess. It's a fairly large establishment she has here. Well, should you need anything I could ever be of service to you, you know where I'll be. And gosh, if it doesn't go well for you, Dunbar, please send your legal authority to the Grove. I would be happy to relay the story myself. I'm sure you can understand I won't be leaving the Grove. He nods. I forgot I was talking to myself, sorry. He nods. Aye, my lady. And he gets this very awkward sort of genuflect. And she places a hand on his shoulder and mutters something unintelligible once again. And he stands back up and kind of stretches himself out. Any sign of injuries, you see wounds begin to knit as this glow of health kind of returns to his color. All of you probably have some sort of damage. I'm sure it's probably long vanished and you're back at full hit points in D&D Beyond, but whoever's worse for the wear from the combat, she looks you over and with Baori's blessing, I will heal and restore any of you who need her blessing.
Thank you.
Okay, so one by one, she will lay on hands. Each time she does this, including when she did this with Dunbar or Kalen, she also lays her staff, like leans it upon you or touches you with it in some manner, and you feel this warmth, this tingly energy enter through her staff as you feel your wounds knit, your energy return, and you each are restored to full hit points. You feel as good as you've ever felt in recent memory. Nourished, energized, clear of any cobwebs, alert, full of vim and vigor. And so you take leave of the Grove?
Indeed.
Yeah, I think at this point we head back to Grass Flats to try to clear Fortin's name.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it does take you a bit of walking to get out of the Grove, and it has gotten to be evening time as you exit the eaves of the alder grove and back into the tall grasses. The ground is still fairly spongy, but you've left behind the little pockets of kind of open water bog that you had in the grove proper. And it's easy enough to follow your own tracks back to the trail that led out here. You pass by the site of the battle with the gnolls. Sorry, Baldwin. Where the gnoll corpses are. They've been feasted upon by some sort of carrion fowl or the like. But other than that, the trail back out to the narrow track that you were following from Grass Flats is fairly uneventful as the sun sets and you find yourself headed southeast upon the road back in the direction of Grass Flats. Feel free to RP or add anything you need to at this point as you're kind of journeying along.
Bingo asks Fortin, so what's this guy look like?
Dunbar?
That we're supposed to be meeting in Grass Flats to be able to clear your name.
Oh, sure. Kelsey Yarvin is the proprietor, a human.
And where are we going to meet this guy?
You're going to find him at Yarvin's. What was the name of that place? It was like
Out
Yarvin's
of character.
Gear.
We met him, didn't we?
Yeah, you've already met him
We
once.
met him
Oh, okay.
previously. Yep.
Okay.
Yarvin's
Sundries.
Gear and Sundries is
Gear
the
and
name
Sundries,
of his outfit. It's right there in Grass Flats. It's well known as a place to gather information, to trade, sell, buy. It's an outfitter. Gear, feed, food, you name it. Tack and harness. It's a fine establishment.
When we talked to him, if I remember, he never alluded to this when we actually talked to him before.
He knew that Kalen was headed out that way. He sent you in that direction.
Right.
But he didn't
never
know
talked
anything
about
of the
clearing
story.
his name.
Right.
Right.
But Fortin reminds you, I was in Grass Flats with Yarvin when all of this went down. So I couldn't possibly be the murderer. And he can attest to that. Indeed.
I hope that's evidence good enough for the sheriff. He's a stern one, but fair.
Lucan, Fortin nods. Stern indeed, but not much of a tracker.
No. Shit for tracking.
And he kind of, touches his apparel. I'm Kalen, by the way. Aldergrove. Arbor Day.
Well said.
And so you're making your way along the track back in the direction of Grass Flats. You know that you're probably going to need an overnight because Grass Flats is more than a day away. And I'm going to invite Carnage, to describe the scene before you along the road as you make your way southeastward.
Okay.
It's your turn.
I'm guessing as they are traveling down making their way down the road off to one side in a kind of more wooded area, you might see the smoke of a campfire and maybe hear like a banging sound.
This countryside, by the way, is grassy. The further away you get from the alder grove, the less spongy and squishy the ground is, firmer, and there becomes this area now starts to have little pockets where there's trees, copses of trees, not great forests or anything. And it is in one of these stands of trees that you discover, you see the glow of a fire. Maybe you smell it if it's downwind or upwind or whatever direction the wind is that makes you smell it. Upwind of you. Yeah.
And if you didn't intend for there to be trees, I apologize.
No, I should have said that. That is
they just
A-okay.
popped up suddenly.
Yes, as if magically.
Well, I see a traveler ahead. Bingo, you think you could sneak up and see if it's something we should be concerned about?
How far are we away from there? Do you think at this point, where we see the smoke?
I would assume, because it's gotten on to kind of twilight into the evening, starting to get dark. So you would probably see the glow of the campfire from, a good bit away, 50, 60 feet probably.
Okay.
It's not a thick stand of trees. It's just a collection of some trees that you could very easily see the shadows and the light flickering, especially against the darkness. It's easy to spot well on down the road, 50, 60 feet up yonder. And I'll even give you the advantage of maybe the wind is blowing in your faces, and so you
Okay.
smell the familiar smell of campfire and whatever else is happening there.
So, so Bingo tells Hedney, yeah, no problem. And he's a little worried just because of what has kind of happened to him. When they came upon the alder grove before, they really were taken back, and that's, you know, they were basically ambushed when they were there. And so Bingo's gonna find his familiar. So the same familiar that actually helped them out before. So he's gonna cast Find Familiar, and then this hawk will kind of appear above his head, the same one that was there when they actually were searching for the grove, and it'll swoop down, heading towards where the smoke is coming from. And if we're within about 100 feet, Bingo can he can basically communicate with the hawk above him to be able to tell him what to do and also what he's actually seeing.
Okay. So are you going to send the hawk in the direction of the fire?
You got it.
Okay. So your hawk circles and wheels above you, as is customary, and then vanishes into the inky blackness and flies on up ahead of you. Erideth, would you give us a description of what a hawk might see from above you as it circles?
An arrow flying right towards it. I'm
Nice.
kidding.
Excellent. Yeah.
Get it out of the air. No, I'm kidding. So from a bird's eye view,
This one's going to be
you
quick.
would see, yeah. And then you just move on down the road. And,
That's right. We just keep going.
Just keep going.
No, you see from the air, the bird's eye view, you would see a small clearing. I don't know, the bird can really, maybe depending on the light, the bird really discern burn marks and scorch marks or not. But there's a small campfire. There's one figure who is banging some kind of a staff or spear or something against a rock, just repeatedly just banging it over and over. There appear to be three small, say roughly humanoid-sized mounds off to one side, and on the other side there's a small pile of some sort of small humanoid bodies and one medium-sized humanoid remains. Again, I'm not sure how. I guess this is what you're seeing through the hawk's eyes, so it's
Okay.
some sort of dead figure that looks like it really got the crap beat out of it.
Roll perception for me, Erideth.
Me?
Yes, sir, please.
My perception.
Small humanoid bodies is making me nervous. There's a lot of small humanoids in this party.
Making everyone nervous.
Yeah.
Making Bingo nervous with his hawk.
Yeah. Well, I guess would the hawk be able to tell? Probably.
Oh, yeah. It's one thing hawks can do is they can see.
Okay. Well, then they're goblin bodies. And I got a 20 in my dirty 20 on my perception.
Okay. You hear above you a little, maybe just the slightest ruffling in the trees. Bingo, you see from your hawk's view that it is perched in the treetops above this figure as it is banging and clanging something stick-shaped against a rock. And your familiar has perched probably 20 feet above it in the boughs and just sitting there watching. Erideth, you might have heard like a stirring up above you in the canopy somewhere.
He will stop what he's doing and look up towards the tree. You'll see a very an elven in appearance. He has white hair, very, very pale skin, wearing some he's got quite a few his like say some of his armor is off where he's bandaged up some wounds, and he just looks right at the hawk and just sort of stares at it for a moment as if trying to figure out, you got a problem with me? What's going on here?
Yeah, roll me perception again.
Me? That's an 11. This roll goes to 11.
You barely make out. It's hard. It's dark. There's boughs. You do have dark
I do have
vision,
dark vision.
so you do get a sense of heat outlined,
Okay.
or a gray outline, perhaps. I switched to infravision for just a second there. In the form of you see the silhouette of a large hawk in the branches above you, and it's just sitting there intently looking at you.
I'll just, if it's just a hawk, doesn't appear to be a threat, I'll just go back to what I was doing. Maybe one or two more good whacks of the spear. I've been hitting on a rock until the spear tip goes ping, snapping off.
So you snap off the spear tip. Okay, so that's what you see, Bingo.
Okay. So Bingo at this point with his, so while this is going on, Bingo's kind of in a trance. So that's kind of when he's being able to actually see and telepathically communicate with this hawk. You can't really communicate with him during that period of time. And so he at this point tells the hawk to take a circle around to see if there's any entrances or any pathways that are coming into this campsite, or if there's only a single entrance or exit into the campsite. And so to fly down, take a little bit of a lower look, and then to circle back to the party after we've gotten a full understanding of kind of how to get in there and how to get out. And then once he does that, then basically the hawk, the spell will end, and Bingo will come out of his trance and be able to start communicating with the rest of the group.
Okay. Yeah, you don't see any kind of an established trail or any such into the camp, but there are numerous footprints in and around, maybe some leading from the track that the party is on. And there's very clearly the signs of battle. There's blood that's spilled. Again, there are these 3 earthen mounds, roughly humanoid shaped, that have recently been excavated, filled, and covered. Those kind of mounds. And then the 5 goblin corpses roughly stacked in a pile, and everything else that Erideth described.
Okay. So Bingo turns to Ebony and says, "It looks like there's definitely an elf. There's definitely one elf, and multiple goblins, dead goblins, and several mounds that look about the size of a human. It looks like there's been a battle, and potentially the elf slayed several goblins in this area and potentially lost some men at the same time. It looks like there's one primary entrance or exit going into the campsite. It does not look like he's dangerous at this point, although it's unclear exactly what he's doing. So if we approach, I think we should approach with some caution."
Aye, that's a good. Any enemy of a goblin is a friend of mine.
So I think we Bingo turns to Fortin and says, "If we need your help, I expect that we're going to be able to that you'll get our back in this situation here."
You saved me. Of course. I'm beholden to you.
Yeah, if there's any funny business, just light that beauty up.
He kind of smirks at you.
So maybe Bingo has some ale we could have.
Drink to our pending doom. Yes.
Bingo nudges to Ebony to kind of push him forward, and so let's get heading in. Let's check it out, but at the same time, I think we should be careful.
I'll make the initial contact then. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm asking.
Okay then.
So the party will move forward on the track. How you going about this, Hebney?
He's gonna he'll kind of do like when they get close, he'll kind of do like you guys kind of chill, and he's gonna walk forward and he's gonna be rather loud about it.
Oh, hail, traveler. Coming in. Calm yourself. Just Hebney Craigbeam here. Looking to warm myself by the fire. Now, don't do anything funny because I got some friends. Just wondering if we could join ya. Oh, what's that pile of goblins?
And with that,
Uh,
we're going to hit pause. Oh, Eridith almost got to play D&D.
It was coming out of
I
his
rolled a
mouth.
perception.
So
It was
Hebney,
actually physically coming out of his mouth.
it was. I nailed it. So Hebney arrives in camp and announces his presence, and that is where we will pick up in 2 weeks. And
Wow.
in 2 weeks, right? Ouch. In 2 weeks, we're going to meet Eridith. We're going to meet Blarg. I mean, I assume we are, unless, of course, Blarg has died at the hands of Eridith.
He's in the pile.
He might be in the pile. So, you've met our group. Woo! Good start, boys.
Gonna be fun.
We'll be back here 2 weeks from today at 1:30 Eastern. My pressing issue to hard stop in a half an hour just kind of moved up on me. Sorry to have to give you a really hard parking break there, guys. But with that, let's call it to a close, and we will see everybody in 2 weeks. So thanks everyone for joining us. Well played, well conversed, gentlemen. And next time we'll open up with Hebney stumbling into Eridith's apparent death camp.
Fantastic. Thanks,
Several
everybody in the
blargs
chat.
lie
You guys
dead.
are awesome.
5 dead blargs.
They were all blind.
All right. Thanks everybody for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.
See you next time.
Good stuff. Good
See ya.
stuff.